Hello, everyone. Welcome to Afternoon Tea with ETs. Thank you for joining us today. This is our first ever podcast episode, so we're going to be getting to know each other a little bit. I am Autumn, and this is James. And welcome to the podcast where we talk about ETs, consciousness, spirituality, progression, evolution, all sorts of things along those lines. And we just welcome you here today and hope you enjoy the show. All right, everyone. I think we're going to get started here. How are you doing, James? How's your day going over there?
Oh, it's great, thanks. No, I'm really excited about this. I've been looking forward to it for ages. It's long overdue, and yeah, can't wait to sort of get into the topics, get to know you a bit more, share our stories, and see where it all takes us.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. It's been an interesting week, kind of pulling everything together and getting our ideas rolling and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just pretty cool. It's fun when these kinds of things come up all of a sudden, creative projects.
Yeah,
But anyways. So today I think we're going to be going over a little bit about just like self-introductions, right?
yeah,
Sharing a bit about um, our backstory, our lore, as they say, and a bit about our connections with the ET experience and how we got here today and why we're doing this type of a theme for a podcast. So,
yeah, yeah.
so do you want to start or do you have a preference or
I'll
how do you
go. I
want?
don't mind going first.
Okay,
So,
cool.
who am I? Well, I guess it's very, where do I start? I guess in terms of my personality, kind of, I'm pretty average Joe kind of guy. I've, kind of gone through the normal education system, normal jobs, this kind of thing. But I've always been really like super sensitive as an individual, open to energies, and ever since I was really, really young, having all kinds of strange experiences I never really could understand. Um, and it's only sort of really since 2007 that I started to sort of open up a little bit more consciously and choose to start actively exploring some of this. And I'm trying to understand kind of what's been going on and that kind of thing. Um, as you know, I've gone through so many different experiences in life, things that I can't explain, sort of, things like deja vu to much more sort of strange experiences, which I'm sure you guys will get to hear about in due course with this podcast. But for me, my main story starts where I sort of was working in a really sort of stressful job, which I left in 2007. I was doing like 60, 70 hours a week, mega, mega stressed. And I think I got to the point, or my body got to the point where it was just not really able to be continued. It was untenable, that situation, especially put perhaps in the larger scheme of things, considering perhaps where the themes I was perhaps supposed to be exploring in this life, which until that point I hadn't really been. So as with all these things, if something is really unhealthy, your experience in life will just start to speak louder and then end up shouting at you, and things will happen that force you to change tack and start to look within. And that's exactly what happened. So after I left that job, I remember a friend of mine giving me a Reiki treatment at the time, which because I was, as I say, I was suffering from anxiety because of that job, and it just blew me away. The energies coming through. I said to her, like, I feel like I've been plugged into the mains socket. It was like I could really feel this energy coming through, and of course, I was like, I have got to learn about this. I've got to find out more. It just really got me so, so curious. So I started to then pursue a course in that very same thing, and eventually became trained up in Reiki and spiritual healing. And I think when you open up to those sorts of energies, you can also open up to other consciousness as well. Um, and sort of as that sensitivity was developing, I guess I became to subconsciously understand perhaps that things that had happened to me in my past probably had more significance than I had previously thought. So I joined a circle, started developing psychically and all that kind of thing. And basically, I think it was 2.5 years ago, then like my world got blown up by this incredible experience where I wasn't just kind of getting information from spirit, but I recognized that a being had visited me, and that being had herself a kind of, uh, I suppose you could say she was incarnated. There was a physical body there, albeit not sort of like another human. So that's where my interest in ETs and really wanting to discover things just really started properly. So now I'm a healer, continuing to develop psychic gifts and channeling abilities, that kind of thing, and also trying to navigate through my life and align with what I really prefer, what I truly love, my passion, which is sharing all this kind of thing, exploring what it is to be human, what it is now, and what it is becoming. Because obviously everyone's heard of this new age thing and moving into Aquarius or ascension, so many different terms for the same thing. But we're all basically expanding, becoming familiar with more of who we truly are. So I'm so impassioned with all of that and wanting to explore that myself, but also to share it out there with everybody else. I think that is probably enough for me for the beginning. There's lots more, but uh, Autumn, I'd love to hear more about yourself, how you got to where you are today and your beginnings.
Yeah, no, I'd love to share. I just have a couple questions, that's all.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I just wanted to learn a little bit more about your like logistics of your upbringing. So you were born in England?
Yeah, I was born in London. I lived there till I
London.
was like 12 years old. Um, and then we all moved down to the south coast, Brighton.
Oh, okay, cool. And you've spent your whole life in England and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
cool. Awesome. All right. I just wanted to know a little bit more of that tidbit. Do you feel that that the location of where you live in maybe even like your family line has some level of influence of your experiences or psychic gifts and things like that?
100%. I think before we even incarnate, we choose this sort of high level play that we want to, or high level experience that we want to have. And so we'll choose um, maybe a sort of place and a time, roughly speaking. Of course, I guess we'd understand it from an energetic level, not in the same way that you or I would understand that as humans now. But I think we choose time and place. I think we choose the family that we're born into in order that
Right.
we can most easily and naturally access the exploration that we wish to have, be that one of limitation, of hardship, or one of expansion and going, discovering new things. And quite often it can be the hardship that leads to these incredible openings and developments in life. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I really do believe that I chose that family for a reason. My mum was an author. She actually had three sci-fi novels published and won
Oh, wow.
1979 Campbell Book Prize for a short story. So some of her stuff was in Asimov, the old sort of compendium of sci-fi stories, which was used to be around like 30, 40 years ago. Um, and Dad was my father, albeit he was a lawyer for his profession, but before that, he actually wanted to work in the church and become like a priest. But I think he quickly found out that that life wasn't for him because
Yeah.
obviously well, there are many different ideas of what an enlightened life really is, and that didn't resonate with him. But they both kind of went to talks every few weeks with a Zoroastrian called Firoz, and he was kind of teaching um, not religion, but he was using comparative religion as a foundation for an exploration of consciousness. So he himself had books published, one of which was called Holistic Consciousness. So I, as a baby, used to be taken along to those talks. So I often wonder if, like, on some level, I was sort of exposed to those energies, and that helped. And I started as a kid having experiences like seeing strange phenomena in other houses, picking up on energies. So of course, it all led to this curiosity that I've always had, really.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, it definitely sounds like you were um, had some supportive influences growing up in terms of just having an open mind. But I'm also curious too about the the location. I know a lot of people say that like the UK has a lot of like well, I guess people describe it in a lot of different ways. A lot of like energetic portals, a lot of openings in that area. Would you feel like, and I don't know if you've traveled at all or have anything to compare it to, but do you feel that um, the UK feels that way to you? Do you feel like there's a lot of spiritual open energy or like open kind of vibe of energy there?
Yeah, I think so. Not so much in the cities, but
Right.
to be fair, even in those places, there are some energies. I remember going up to I think it's just north of London, near Stansted, Arthur Findlay College. It's a world-renowned psychic studies school. It looks a bit like Hogwarts. It's a really cool place to go to. They do like week-long courses. You can sleep there, stay on campus, and I can really imagine the pictures, the eyes moving, and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, around there, there's definitely energies, and like just driving around the area, you'll feel when you're driving into a certain pocket of certain energy, or when you're leaving it, and there's a denser energy. Um, and not far from me, a couple of hours drive, you've got Glastonbury, very strong portal energies there.
Mhm,
Um, so yeah, there's definitely quite a lot. And I live just south, like right by the coast, just south of what we call the South Downs, which is like a range of hills. And
mhm.
a lot of those hills have got some quite interesting energies too. So, I mean, if you trace
Do
back the
they know
history,
if they're are they like druidic mounds? Do they know if that's
not
the
so much
case?
in the southeast, but certainly over towards Glastonbury, there's a lot of that. But I suspect that they could well be, but it's a real hodgepodge of some good energies, some bad energies, or heavier energies, I should say, because I'm just labeling it. But yeah, so there's plenty to explore, and it seems to be a thing over here. But they do a lot of these ghost hunting experiences, and they will choose old buildings like that go back like 1,000 years or whatever, and you can spend the whole night there exploring it and tuning into the place. So I think it's
Oh,
part
wow.
of yeah, there's a lot of history here, and I guess that lends itself to those sorts of energies being more prominent.
Definitely. I mean, when you have the energy of the indigenous, um, you know, ancient ancestry that is always continuing to be present in the land, kind of is like imbued into the land. It's very apparent, especially when um, those people from those lineages continue to live in those places.
Yeah,
That's why, even though in America, there's a lot of people who didn't originate here, the majority of them didn't originate here and don't have a tendency to notice the spirit of the land. Um, all the people who are still here that are indigenous to the land, they have they understand the land so much more differently than the average American citizen does.
yeah,
And it's just really cool. We'll have to maybe have a whole podcast on that, the idea of indigenous magic and the connection to the earth and the kind of things that can bring. But anyways,
You yourself have
so
a connection to some of those sort of more indigenous over your side of the pond, don't you?
yes, I do actually. And I think it's a part of why, I guess it's a part of my story. So I guess I'll share a little bit if that's okay. Um, I do have some ancestry kind of things that I feel influence my openness or the openness that I've always had. I feel that, I had a very strong draw towards Native American um, culture and the people, and had a lot of longing to want to live that way. And when the Disney movie Pocahontas came out, which I do understand it's a problematic movie, not an accurate depiction of the Pocahontas story, but I didn't know that as a child, and it just made me that much more interested and honestly kind of obsessive about wanting to live that way, wanting to live close to the land and with a tribe of people. It was just felt like such a deep longing inside of my heart. And it continued on into my preteen years, and didn't really understand at that point in time, what exactly that feeling was. And then over the past 5 or 6 years, I started to investigate and find out that my great grandmother and my grandmother were both, uh, I think, full and half-blooded Mi'kmaq, which is a tribe from Canada, which is actually just above from the part of the US that I live in. It's just above that. Um, so as I started to figure that out, it became clear to me, you know, that a lot of these feelings were because of that, because of the energy coming from my ancestry and this feeling of connection to the land, this particular area in the US too, um, was coming from that. And it's kind of weird that, I didn't know this until later on, and it mostly had to do with the fact of my great grandmother and my grandmother growing up in an environment of racism, really, if we're just going to be real, and trying to hide their ethnicity. That was a big thing. Trying to hide their ethnicity, trying to pass themselves off as something else. And so nobody talked about it. And uh, so it took a lot of digging and
Yeah, yeah.
building trust with my grandmother so that she could start to share some information with me. But yeah, that's just a piece, I guess, of my backstory. I grew up in America, obviously. Both my parents were just average Joe workers. They had their personal aspirations, but were, due to, a handful of different reasons, never felt confident enough to go after those things. So their biggest thing was just raising us and making sure we had everything we needed and had our normal childhood experiences. But I also had a rough childhood too. And because of this, these gifts of being more psychically open that I seem to come in with, um, I think the hardships I experienced as a kid opened that up even more because it became an avenue for me to um, find some comfort, as I grew up. So, um, but, all that being said, after doing all of the, shadow work and healing that I've done over the years, I have a different kind of view of my childhood now.
Mm,
I have, like you were saying, like sometimes we pick things before we come in to
yeah.
develop certain things. And I really do feel that that was the case for me. And I never thought, when I was in the thick of healing, I never thought I would be thankful for the things that I had gone through.
Mm,
But, now that I'm here and now that I understand, I I know myself better. I know how to be myself more easily. And I have a stronger relationship with my higher self or my soul or whatever. I'm actually really proud of myself, and I'm happy that I've overcome the things that I have and have grown in the ways that I wanted to coming in and achieved some of the life goals that I came in with. I'm happy and so I went through my life having a lot of psychic experiences, having ET contact experiences, and a lot of paranormal stuff, and um, never fully registered that it was significant somehow. It was just kind of like how I grew up. You probably get that too.
Yeah.
It's just you grow up a certain way and you don't think anything of it, and you think everybody's having the same kind of experiences, and then you hit a point where you're like, oh, this this is not an average thing. And so I think that's when I started to realize that as I was progressing on a spiritual path, um, and utilizing that path to try and help make sense of my life and help me find answers for why I had the kind of life I did. Um, Once I got onto that path, it became important for me to figure out um, why did I come in with these gifts, and you know what you start thinking about bigger picture ideas like what is my purpose on this
Mm,
planet? Why am I here?
mm,
And so in time, over many experiences and years, I began to realize that, you know, just like how someone can have a calling to be a doctor or a nurse or an athlete, I came in wanting to be like a messenger of sorts, like a psychic, an oracle, however you want to look at it, someone who helps to decipher non-physical information and
mm.
share that with people. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at now. And through my connections on the internet and getting to know James here and making friends, we've just been exploring different concepts and ideas. And it's kind of leading into more creative projects. And I'm just excited to be here and get to have fun, really. This is our way of playing, I think
Yeah.
people will get together and do maybe like do a sport together or something like that, or board games, and this is our version of that in a way.
There's a natural sort of human thing about expressing oneself and showing one's truth, isn't there? That's I think one of the things that I'm sort of starting to feel by doing this. I'm finally embracing like who I really am, and no longer having to hide myself and, oh, I shouldn't have this opinion or I shouldn't say that because of the judgment I might experience as a result. I think part of this journey in life is about stepping through and past all of that and being able to really embody yourself much more authentically.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and
And I
then
think
you'll attract the circumstances in life that really resonate and reflect that, and you'll attract the people who are of a similar um, mindset or frequency.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think it's good to, I totally get the wanting not wanting to experience judgment from other people. I think a lot of kids that are uh deep soulful kids experience, feeling left out or strange or maybe even bullying as they're growing up. Um, and, everybody else, it appears from our perspective, gets to express themselves and um, investigate their interests and, express themselves in the ways that they want to. But because we're exploring something deeper and maybe to the general public a little more strange, it can feel like, you know, it can feel worrisome,
Yeah.
that you might bring the wrong kind of attention to yourself. But
Mm.
I think, the world is changing, and things are becoming more serious. And I think because of that, people are wanting to find more meaning to their lives. They're wanting to have a deeper understanding about what's going on. And so it's just funny. I just find it funny that all the things that I thought kept me, um, hurt other people the most and kept me, um, you know, ostracized the most are the things that I think in the long run are going to connect me most with people and be the
Yeah.
most of service to other people in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a real sort of, I think people like to feel safe in life, don't they? They feel like it's about feeling accepted, feeling safe. And there's this big idea out there, I think, that humanity needs to change to evolve. So in these first initial steps, we're sort of exploring, well, what does that actually mean? Does that mean more authenticity? Does that mean sort of, being comfortable and confident with stepping out and doing something that is really who you are and not so much about something that's acceptable to the collective?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's exciting times, but definitely it's all about going out of the comfort zone at the moment, I think.
Yes. I think it's going to become more and more important with time, as uh, humanity's going through its own growing pains. I think the same kinds of things that the microcosm and the macrocosm reflect each other. The same kind of things that people like you and me are exploring about being ourselves and what does that mean and not holding ourselves back. I think the collective is figuring that out too. And
Yeah,
so it's kind of cool to be, you know, I find it exciting. Some people might be intimidated by the idea of blazing new trails or, being the first to try to
yeah.
be vulnerable in that way, but I'm excited by it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think as you're saying that is bringing up so many possible avenues the conversation could go in. I think we're going to have some really really interesting kind of future discussions and topics to explore. One of the things, for example, for me is just like what is reality? How's it made up? Because if we can kind of understand to a degree what that means for us in terms of the best way we can live, then that's very powerful, isn't it? And have some fun along the way with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I definitely think there's like um a lot of potential for new philosophical thought on life about what it means. I feel like we really haven't tried anything new since, Roman and Greek times. And the last time that we did try to do something new, we ended up with people like Nietzsche and, you know, a lot more, um, at the turn of the century, things were a lot more serious at that time and were a lot more stark. And I think the newer philosophies were a reflection of that. But I think, um, I don't know, I just feel a lot of positive grassroots kind of energy coming during these times. And I think it's going to make for a lot more interesting new philosophical perspectives rather than just a couple stuffy European dudes who um, are dealing with first world problems.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm looking forward to some of your energy updates as well, because I think that's something we want to include on a fairly regular basis, isn't it? With
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can even, yeah, mention a couple of the ideas that we have for the audience's sake, just to have some ideas of like what might be coming up. Thinking of energy updates, like you said, maybe like monthly,
yeah,
maybe offer some channeling um, clips, or we're not quite sure how we're going to integrate channeling into the podcast yet, but it's an idea. Um,
Get some
what
guests
else?
as well. Some,
Yeah, some guests,
yeah.
definitely. We're thinking for now with each episode, we'll have kind of like a topic that we can talk about, and we'll, and it just came to mind as well, while we were just talking, that since we're called Afternoon Tea with ETs, maybe we can have that be a part of our calling card. We'll have to have a cup of tea with us, at least at the beginning when we start, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So an opportunity for everyone to sit down with us and have a cup of tea and relax a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it's like one of the reasons I think we focused on the ET thing is because it's something that I personally feel is really expanding in society at the moment. The idea of that, what does that mean? And I just think it's such an amazing, interesting, fascinating thing to explore. You know, what does that mean for us as as the human race? What might that be like? How might that sort of manifest in our realities? And you know, other things around that. For example, there's always traditionally been a lot of fear in that idea, but we're really sort of starting, I think, to build momentum into coming out of that a bit and coming from a much more empowered perspective, which will change how that sort of contact is seen. So there's a lot of really cool things to explore there, I think.
Definitely. And maybe we can have that be our next topic.
Yeah.
Just talking about the relevance of ET contact and its connection to the change that the Earth seems to be going through. And I really do feel, and we could, of course, like I said, we can make it a whole episode about this, but I really do feel that the process of change that the Earth is going through and ET contact, they're like reflections of each other. It's like one is happening because of the other and vice versa. So it'll be interesting to explore that. And speaking of ETs, maybe before we close out today, I was thinking it might be a fun idea to share a little story, like a little anecdotal story about, well, I guess I don't quite know exactly what we want our first uh, story time to be about. We could talk about our first contact experience that we can remember,
Mhm.
or the most significant one. And of course, contact experiences can be very broad. It's not just like physical contact, but
Dream
um, I just,
contacts, out of
yeah,
body protection and everything else. Yeah.
yeah.
Do
So
are you happy to go first?
sure, I just let me take a second to think here. Um, hmm. Well, I guess my most the the first story that comes to mind, the one that I think started me on opening up more to the concept of ET contact and my connection to it, was something that happened in my early 20s. I had gone to the beach with a bunch of friends, and um we had all basically, we came there to party. We had, lit a fire, we had brought drinks and things like that, and we had just gotten there, and it had just become dark. We hadn't really started to party yet necessarily. And so I was, in fact, sober. I know people like to debate on that if they know that you've been drinking or something. Um, and as we were getting things set up, I don't think we had even lit the fire yet. We started to hear this weird sound coming from the sky, and um, it was the sound of a helicopter, which was weird. So initially we thought it was going to be like a helicopter that was coming over us. But when it started to come over, it wasn't shaped like a helicopter. It was shaped more like a disc. And so as it started to come over us, it was going slow. And I don't know if it was making that sound as a way to, in the hopes to like mask itself, like make itself seem like it was something else. But we could see what it was. And as it started to come over us, this um, V-shaped, um, I don't know how to explain it, V-shaped laser basically was going over the top of us as it went by us. It turned on, basically scanned us with these lasers, and once it was past us, it turned them off. And then it started to head out towards the ocean. And everyone that I was with started to, obviously, they were all scared. They were freaking out. Everyone was not excited about it. They were all talking about how maybe we should leave. And I immediately started chasing it.
How many of you were there in the group?
I would say maybe like 7 or 8 of us.
Okay.
And that was my first impulse, was to actually run towards the UFO and try to, I don't know what I was trying to do.
We have a
Um,
we have a funny joke in England about, like those typical American horrors where there's some horrible noise from the cellar. What do? They go down and have a look in the cellar.
right, right, exactly. I'm that type of person, I guess. If I was in a movie, I would probably be the first to go. But yeah, so I ran and it of course kept going, leaving. We lost sight of it because it really didn't have any lights on at the time, except for when it had the lasers going. And you could see it kind of against the sky when it was right above us. But once it was going out towards the horizon, it was more difficult to see. And I had different people that I told a story to that had different ideas about it, but none of it really, I guess, resonated or connects well. I know that there's like planes that will scan the beach, but there's a lot of things about that don't line up. So like, why was it making a helicopter sound? Because the plane that does that isn't a helicopter. um, Also, like, it wasn't shaped like a plane. And why did it only scan us? You know, why was it only scanning when it was going over us and then it turned off the lasers,
Mm.
and then go out into the ocean? If it's supposed to be scanning the beach, what, like, why, like, none of it adds up, you know what I mean? And there's a possibility that it could have been government, that's a whole other topic that we could get into. But regardless, I think it was the first moment where, instead of feeling fear about UFOs and ETs, I felt excited, like
Mm.
really curious and excited. Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I think it's interesting though, because I guess there's a lot of people out there who may or may not have shared their own experiences, probably more so than we realize. And when they come to have that sort of experience, you know, is it the vehicle or the other beings concerned or that mask the sound? Or is it something our own consciousness does in order to not make it too scary, but at the same time, we know on some level that there's more to this, which then can help push us on our exploration of that subject. So the whole inner versus outer thing to me is really interesting.
It is very interesting, especially with experiences that are that physical, like seemingly physical,
Hmm.
as seeing a craft that close, because it's 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 one thing to think about, say, a dream that I had with an ET where my mind did something to like make them look different or sound different. But to to imagine that my mind truly did that it's that powerful to make really loud, like helicopter propeller sounds,
Yeah.
like to imagine that, it's like
I
it
don't,
feels like a stretch, you know?
yeah, no, I don't mean like you imagined it. I mean more in the sense that the idea that, I mean, we're expanding the topic here, but the idea that, we are, in a sense, we're more than just a physical human being. We are, in a
Right.
sense, within our own consciousness, couched within our own consciousness, and therefore that largest part of us is creating that experience for us to have.
Yeah. Yes. No, I get that. I guess what I was trying to touch on is like, um, on a deeper level, I understand that this is similar to like kind of how the mechanics of things work, right? Like our minds are creating our experiences, but just how deep that goes and just how literal that goes
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a lot for my conscious egoic mind to like to grok, because it's
yeah,
like
100%. Yeah, yeah.
you mean to tell me that like we manifested that sound somehow? Like what?
Mm,
You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but anyways, I'm curious about what your story would be if you could pick one.
Okay, well, I guess I will pick the first time I met um, a someone I know who is allegedly from the Yael civilization.
Hmm.
I did
Hmm.
have some crazy experiences leading up to that, which probably helped me get ready for that. But I'll go into those another time. But for this one experience, I was kind of waking up in the morning. I was definitely conscious. I was aware of the room around me, looking out the window. So I was consciously awake. But I guess my egoic mind hadn't fully kicked in. And I looked over to my right and I saw um, this woman sort of sat there, and I could feel her holding my hand, and I could see her hand, her arm, and then but beyond the shoulder, it kind of became translucent. So I saw the outline of the rest of the body, but not full, not fully physical. I
Hmm.
saw her fully physically and on another occasion later, but this being the first time I really had full conscious contact, I thought I'd give this story, but it was crazy because I was able to consciously sort of feel her arm, and like I had the thought in my head, oh, just relax, just sit down, and I saw her sort of perch on the edge of the bed kind of thing. Um, so that was a real awakening for me. It's a lot of people maybe have seen spirit or what have you, but with this, I was actually able to feel that this being had a physicality to her. There was a lot. So and there were other experiences over the course of the next few days, which meant that really, in no uncertain terms, I absolutely wholeheartedly knew that, shit, this is my first ever meeting with somebody from somewhere else. And that really did blow it all up for me, so to speak, and start me on the real journey, which I feel I'm still opening up to now. So yeah, but to be able to actually feel that being and see the arm and have conversation, that really does make it 100% real. So yeah, that was my experience.
That's amazing. I mean, what a way to get introduced, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, was that your first time ever having, like, other than say like seeing a craft or something like that? Is that the first time that you remember?
No.
Um,
About
I
two,
guess it gets kind of weird about timelines and like
yeah.
memory of things, right? But at that time, had that been your first time um, being in contact with a physical being?
No, no,
No.
no.
Okay.
I had,
But it was
well,
just the most convincing kind of
most
experience, the most,
convincing. Yeah.
yeah.
There was a previous time where I sort of had a very, very lucid sort of out of body experience. And it was with, I can't even begin to describe the being. I guess you could say maybe it was um, part reptilian,
Hmm.
but so loving, so caring, going against all the sort of societal preconceptions of the idea of that kind of being. And this was like a very, very lucid dream where I know that my mind was was viewing through filters so that I could understand an experience that I think I was projecting to in the sleep state, but that experience was kind of feeding back through my filters and my conscious mind in a way that I could understand it. But certain things were going on that made me think this is more than just a dream. When I woke up from that, my crown was just chakra was absolutely buzzing, and I had this real sense that of having company around me.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think a lot kind of gets translated back into the physical when you wake up, which people will remember their dreams for a few minutes, don't they? Because that they bring back some of that experience. So this experience, well, I was with others, and we were kind of we were in a room, we were doing a meditation. The room then started, the furniture in it started to morph and become technology. Um, and then we were walking down a sort of into another room through a door and being greeted by these beings. And I saw them full on, like really clearly, felt the waves of energy coming from them. And we were kind of given a symbolic bowl of soup, sort of
Mm.
nourishing bowl of soup as a symbolic, nice gesture, I guess. It
Mhm.
sounds completely insane, probably to many people, but again, to me, I really did have that very lucid experience with something that I brought back into my physical perceptions that really made
Right.
me think there's more to it than that. And I think that was the whole point, because it was that point onwards in my life that things started to really accelerate. I think the purpose of these, we all have dreams on many, I believe, in many different levels at night, all happening simultaneously outside of the human construct reality. And I think sometimes circumstances could be ripe where we can bring more of that back into our physical mind. Perhaps that's also part of our sort of life themes. And it could be a kickstart to sort of make you maybe more interested or following a certain theme with more curiosity than beforehand. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it definitely did for me.
That's great. That's so cool. Well, I'm looking forward to, sharing more, but also hearing more. And maybe we can even have some episodes where we share other people's stories too, as well. That might be
Yeah,
something cool
absolutely.
down the
A-
road.
Absolutely.
Um,
I'm really excited about sort of really putting this all out there now. Because I don't know, I just really want to share it, and I want to give people the choice to to kind of, if they want to sort of explore these things themselves and maybe find out
right.
more about themselves on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give people some other ideas. I mean, really, it's the same thing with channelers. Like the more voices there are, explaining things in their own unique way of explaining things, the more of a picture that we get, and the more I think we can expand upon ideas because, we're trying to take what's essentially telepathic information,
Mm.
non-physical information, and find ways to express it verbally, which is fun. And I think an inherent part of being a human, we love playing with language, but I
Yeah.
think the more voices that we get out there, and I think it also kind of feeds into that idea of like, shrinking ourselves down for the sake of others because maybe we don't want to feel comfortable about being seen or being judged or whatever. But
Mm.
it's like if we all do that, then we are going to kind of slow down this process of evolution, slow down this expansion we're all experiencing, and we just don't do any service to ourselves or to humanity, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of ways, there are so many different ways to understand this. The thing that popped into my mind as you were talking then was, you know, you could argue that all of our own human experience that we're all comfortable with and all familiar with actually begins in the non-physical. In the
Hmm.
if we follow the idea that, we are the sort of physical manifestation of our non-physical selves. But
Hmm.
I'm getting way too deep there. But
Yeah.
there's a lot
No,
more
and I
to
think
unpack
that's what
there.
we're trying to do. We're trying to find ways to start breaking out of that idea
Yeah,
that we are small, less, that God is outside of us, all this way of thinking that humans have been doing for a long time. And I'm just excited to be here at this time where we're starting to um, break those narratives and question them, you know?
yeah, definitely.
Um,
And
but
the
yeah,
the idea that you know disclosure or contact starts from disclosing oneself, and the
right,
whole idea of the whole ET phenomena, well, that's just a reflection of the inner work that we're doing.
exactly, definitely.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to sharing many, many more conversations and, until next time.
Yes. Thanks everybody for joining us today and um, being patient with us because we are still in the beginning stages here of getting comfortable and figuring out how we want to do things. And so might be clunky for a little bit, and we appreciate your continued patience. And we hope everyone has a wonderful day and enjoy your tea. Find some time for some cozy time with your own ET.
Yeah.
And we will see you all next time.
See you soon.
Bye.